The valley was too quiet. Sergeant Merrick didn't like quiet. Not out here. Not this deep in the zone. He scanned the ridge with narrowed eyes. There was no movement. No wind. Even the birds had stopped. Then a single shot cracked through the air. Private Nolan dropped before anyone heard the echo. Sniper. Down. Merrick shouted. Then all hell broke loose. Gunfire erupted from 3 directions. Echo platoon hit the dirt. Dirt kicked up. One man screamed. The team was pinned. No time to find cover. They were caught in a bowl. Nowhere to run. Merrick slammed his radio. Echo to command. We're under heavy fire. Repeat, we're surrounded. We need air support. Immediate. A pause. Static. Then a calm voice returned. Copy that, Echo. Help is in the air. Merrick ducked as another round cracked past his head. Doesn't feel like it, he muttered. Corporal Reyes crawled over, blood streaking down his sleeve. We're gonna get rolled, Sarge. They're flanking us. We're not making it out of this. Merrick shook his head. Not yet. Hold the line. Then the radio crackled again. A different voice this time. Older. Firm. Measured. This is Colonel Ruiz. Echo platoon, I need you to hold for 90 seconds. Colonel, with all due respect. Just look up. Merrick frowned. He turned his eyes to the sky. Nothing. Just clouds. Smoke. Fire on the ridge. But then he heard it. The sound. Low at first. Almost distant. But rising. Thump. 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 Not a jet. Not a drone. A helicopter. Big. Heavy. And angry. One of the guys shouted, "Is that Apache?" Another yelled, "Apache inbound." A dark shape sliced through the smoke above. Rotors screaming. Blades cutting hard. An AH-64D. And she was flying low. Too low. On purpose. The chopper banked left, almost sideways. She came in fast. Tight. Merrick squinted up through the chaos. Inside the cockpit. A pilot. Steady hands. Helmeted. Focused. Then he saw it. A flash of red lipstick on the dashboard. A single word written above it in marker. Wolf. Captain Dana Wolf. The name echoed in Merrick's head. He'd heard it before. Stories. Rumors. A pilot who flew missions no one else would touch. Said she could drop a missile between 2 windows from a mile out. Now she was their air support. And she was already locking targets. Reyes looked up beside him. Wait. That's her. Merrick just nodded. His heart was pounding. But for the first time in 10 minutes, he wasn't scared. The Apache's guns roared. One side of the ridge vanished in fire. Then another. The ground shook. The enemy fire staggered. Then stopped. And Merrick finally understood. She didn't come to assist. She came to finish. He grabbed the radio. Command, this is Echo. Tell the colonel. Message received. The control tower at forward base Trident was chaos. Screens flickered. Radios buzzed. Everyone was talking at once, except Colonel Ruiz. He stood at the center of the storm, arms crossed, eyes locked on the live drone feed. On the monitor, Echo Platoon was taking cover behind shattered rocks and smoking dirt. 2 soldiers were down. One wasn't moving. Rounds still cracked from the tree lean. Ruiz leaned toward the screen. Where's that damn bird? A junior officer ran up, headset half on. Sir, all pilots are on standby, but Falcon team is 10 minutes out. Airspace is crowded. We'll need to coordinate. Don't need Falcon, Ruiz said. Send Wolf. The room went quiet. The officer blinked. Sir? She's prepping a maintenance flight. It's not a combat op. She's fueled. Yes, sir, but she's ready. Ruiz turned toward the flight pad. Beyond the glass, the lone Apache sat like a loaded gun. Get her in the air. Now. The officer hesitated. Who's her co-pilot? She doesn't need one. But regulations. Ruiz's tone dropped. Son, do you want to explain regulations to 30 men bleeding in a valley? The officer said nothing. He turned and ran. Ruiz stepped closer to the radio. He pressed the button. Ghost 1, this is Trident. You're cleared for live engagement. Echo Platoon is active. You are weapons free. A pause. Then a voice crackled back. Low comm, female. Ghost 1 copies. Spinning up now. Ruiz let go of the mic and muttered, God help anyone on the wrong end of that rotor wash. Captain Dana Wolf walked across the tarmac with her helmet under one arm. No words. No drama. Just purpose. She climbed into the Apache like she'd done it 1,000 times. Because she had. As the blades kicked up dust, 2 ground crew members stepped back. One tapped the other on the shoulder. Is she really going in alone? The other nodded. Always does. The engines roared. The machine lifted. A beast rising into war. In the cockpit, Wolf flicked switches in sequence. Her eyes scanned the terrain map. She already knew the layout. She'd flown that valley 6 times during training. She'd marked the wind currents in her head. Her thumb hovered over the comms. Trident, Ghost 1 is airborne. ETA to Echo position, 90 seconds. Ruiz heard it from the tower. He didn't smile, didn't cheer, just nodded once. That was enough. On the ridge, bullets were still flying. But some of the shooters were slowing down. Something was coming. They could feel it in the air. Reyes looked up again, wiping blood from his eye. You think she's really coming? Merrick didn't answer. He was watching the treeline, listening. Then he heard it again. That sound. Low, heavy, relentless. Thump, thump, thump. This time louder. This time closer. The Apache rose over the ridge like thunder given form. Merrick saw her. The same bird. Same markings. Same pilot. Inside, through the glass, Captain Wolf didn't blink. She saw everything. Her targeting system lit up. So did the battlefield. And just like that, the ground began to shake again. Captain Dana Wolf didn't speak as the Apache leveled out. She didn't have to. The battlefield was already talking. She dropped altitude fast, skimming just above the ridge. Too low for comfort. Too low for most pilots. But Wolf wasn't most pilots. Below, the enemy scattered. They weren't expecting air support this fast. They definitely weren't expecting her. In the cockpit, Wolf adjusted the targeting system. She didn't rely on AI. She relied on her eyes. Sharp, focused, cold as iron. A column of smoke drifted across her path. She tilted left, weaving between it like it was muscle memory. Because it was. The helmet HUD blinked red. 2 RPG teams spotted. One on the ridge. One hidden behind a rock outcrop. She had seconds. No room for error. She didn't flinch. Her finger hovered over the trigger. Then fired. The first missile streaked down. Impact. The outcrop vanished. No confirmation needed. She'd hit exactly what she aimed at. The second target moved. The RPG team ran for cover. Wolf didn't chase. She calculated. Wind. Distance. Movement. She fired again. Direct hit. Debris flew into the air like paper scraps. She banked left, scanning for more. Back on the ground, Merrick stared up at the sky in disbelief. That Apache wasn't just laying down fire. It was surgical, precise, controlled chaos. He heard Reyes beside him whisper, "She's flying it like it's an extension of her." Merrick nodded slowly. He'd seen a lot in his time, but nothing like this. The radio on his chest crackled. "Echo, this is Ghost 1. You've got a 30-second window to move. North Ridge is clear. Repeat, move now." That voice, calm and steady, cut through the chaos like a knife. It wasn't a request. It was a command. And they followed it. Merrick signaled to the squad. "Move now. Leave nothing behind." They pulled the wounded, grabbed what gear they could, and ran. The open stretch between the rocks and the ridge was exposed. Too quiet. Then the gunfire started again. New position. Far side. Another ambush. But before the squad could hit the ground, the Apache rotated midair. Fast. Wolf's eyes locked onto the muzzle flashes. No hesitation. She unleashed the 30mm chain gun. It sounded like rolling thunder. Rounds tore across the ridge. Short bursts. Controlled. Just enough. She didn't spray and pray. She counted every round. On the ground, Merrick dropped to a knee, watching the firepower carve a path through the ridge. He couldn't believe it. One helicopter. One pilot. Holding the sky like she owned it. Reyes stared upward, mouth open. "That's not flying," he said. "That's something else." Wolf pulled back on the stick. Altitude climbing. Systems green. Fuel steady. She could hear their voices through the radio. But she didn't answer. She wasn't here for thanks. Her job wasn't done. Not yet. Another red alert flashed across her screen. Movement on the far ridge. New heat signature. She narrowed her eyes. A sniper team. 2 men. Hidden under brush. Targeting locked. But this time, she waited. Calculated. Watched. Then, just as the sniper moved to line up a shot, she fired. No sound reached the ground before the explosion. Just dust. And silence. Captain Wolf turned the Apache back toward the valley. She'd given them time. She'd cleared the path. Now it was up to them to survive it. The ridge was quiet now. Too quiet. Merrick didn't trust silence anymore. He motioned his men forward, staying low. Every footstep felt like it echoed. But they had no choice. They had to move. Behind them, the smoke still lingered where the sniper team had been. Wolf had saved them again. He keyed his mic. "Ghost 1, this is Echo. We're advancing north. Any eyes on enemy movement?" Nothing. Just static. Then her voice returned. "Negative. You're clear for now. But don't slow down." Reyes dragged Corporal Anders by his vest. The man was still unconscious. Blood soaked the right side of his shirt, but he was breathing. They moved across the ridge fast, stumbling, tired, but alive. No more chatter. No time for talk. Above them, the Apache banked wide, covering their route. It hovered like a shadow. No closer than it had to be. No further than they needed. Inside the cockpit, Wolf checked her systems. Fuel, half tank. Ammunition, low. Only 2 Hellfires left. That didn't worry her. She'd flown with less. What bothered her was the pattern. The way the enemy moved. Too coordinated. Too prepared. This wasn't a random ambush. Someone had known Echo would be here. And someone had waited. She opened the encrypted channel. "Trident, this is Ghost 1. Recommend intel review on Echo's route. Ambush was too clean. Too planned." Back at base, Colonel Ruiz picked up the transmission. He didn't respond right away. He just stared at the map. Then he said, "Understood. We'll look into it. Keep them alive, Captain." Wolf didn't answer. She didn't need to. She dipped the nose of the Apache and scanned the far side of the canyon. Thermal picked up something. A cluster of heat signatures. Moving fast. Not retreating. Flanking. Her eyes narrowed. She opened the channel to Echo. "Contact east. You've got company closing from your right." Merrick spun and raised his rifle. Positions. Cover right. The team scrambled behind boulders and brush. No time to dig in. No good cover. Then they saw them. 6 figures in tactical gear, moving low. Not rebels. Not farmers with rifles. These men were trained. Reyes fired first. Then chaos. Bullets sparked off stone. One man screamed as he fell. Merrick keyed the mic. "Ghost 1, we're pinned again. We need cover, now." Wolf was already in position. She pulled hard on the controls, lining up the angle. She had one shot. One clean line. Her last Hellfire was armed. She watched the lead enemy kneel and aim. Too close to Echo's line. Too fast. She exhaled once and fired. The missile roared off the rail. It struck the earth 10 meters behind the enemy team. The explosion sent them flying. Dust, dirt, bodies. Silence followed. Merrick ducked and looked up. The threat was gone. Again. He didn't even speak. Just stared up at the Apache. It hovered for a second longer, then began to rise. In the cockpit, Wolf checked her console. 1 missile left. Fuel at 30%. And still, she wasn't done. The sun was dipping behind the jagged peaks, casting long shadows over the battered valley. Echo platoon moved fast, urgency driving their every step. Their breaths came ragged, weapons heavy in their hands. They couldn't afford to rest. Not yet. Merrick kept glancing upward. The Apache was still there, hovering, watching. Like a guardian angel, cloaked in steel and fire. Ghost 1, Merrick said into the radio, "What's your status?" "Fuel?" "Ammo." Wolf's voice came steady, no hint of fatigue. "Fuel at 25%. Ammo low. 1 Hellfire left. Chain gun at 50% capacity. But I'm holding. Eyes open." "Roger that," Merrick replied, wiping dirt from his forehead. "We're almost to the extraction point." Extraction. The word hung in the air like a promise and a threat. They weren't out of danger yet. The path ahead narrowed, funneling the platoon between steep cliffs and dense brush. Every step could be their last. Suddenly, a crack echoed from above. "Incoming." Reyes shouted. The platoon dove as a hail of bullets splattered against rock and earth. Snipers. From somewhere high on the cliffs, invisible and deadly. Merrick cursed under his breath. "Ghost 1, need suppression fire on the ridge. Snipers are picking us off." "Copy," Wolf responded instantly. The Apache banked hard, rotors slicing the thickening dusk air. Wolf's hands danced over the controls. Targeting locked. The 30mm chain gun spat fire with terrifying precision. Bullets tore into the cliffside, forcing the snipers to scramble or fall. "Get moving," Merrick yelled. "Don't give them a chance." The platoon scrambled forward, adrenaline surging. Anders, still bleeding, was propped up by 2 others. He grimaced but stayed conscious. Minutes felt like hours. Every crunch of gravel, every rustle of leaves was a reminder of the danger still lurking. Then the radio crackled. "Ghost 1, this is command. New intel incoming. Possible enemy reinforcements en route from the east." Ruiz's voice was calm but firm. Wolf's jaw tightened. "Understood. We need to get Echo out before they arrive." Merrick's gaze darted to the horizon. Shadows lengthened, and movement flickered near the tree-line. "We're not going to make it if they catch us in the open." Wolf's voice cut through the tension like steel. "Not on my watch." She banked the Apache sharply, descending low once again. Her final Hellfire missile locked on a cluster of figures moving fast, armed, determined, relentless. She fired. The missile screamed through the air, detonating in a fiery blast that scattered the reinforcements. Back on the ground, the explosion bought the platoon precious seconds. They surged forward, desperate now, muscles burning. Merrick spotted the extraction point, a small clearing where a Black Hawk waited, rotors idling. "Almost there," he breathed. But the enemy wasn't finished. Machine gun fire erupted from the trees flanking the clearing. "Cover me," Merrick ordered. He sprinted ahead, dragging Anders by the arm. Reyes and the others laid down suppressive fire, buying time. The Apache roared above, unleashing another burst from its chain gun. Wolf's eyes never left the ground. She was calculation, and instinct fused into one lethal force. Suddenly, a figure broke from the tree line, sprinting toward the platoon. Merrick raised his rifle, but Wolf saw first. She tilted the Apache's nose and unleashed a final barrage. The figure stumbled and fell, silence rushing back. The clearing was clear. Merrick reached the Blackhawk's ramp and pulled Anders inside. "Get down," the pilot shouted. The Black Hawk lifted, blades chopping the evening air. Echo Platoon was finally moving away from the kill zone. Merrick glanced up once more. The Apache banked away, disappearing into the fading light. "Thanks, Ghost One," he whispered. But Wolf was already focused on the next mission. For her, the fight never ended. The Black Hawk's engines roared, carrying Echo Platoon away from the shattered valley. Inside, the tension was thick, every soldier too exhausted to speak. Merrick sat beside Anders, watching the terrain blur beneath them. The narrow canyon they had just escaped looked peaceful now, deceptively so. "Medics on him," Merrick said softly, nodding toward Anders, who was pale but breathing steadily. Outside, the sun slipped beneath the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of orange and purple. But Merrick's mind was elsewhere. "Ghost One," he whispered into his radio, voice hoarse. "Did you make it back safe?" There was a brief pause, then Wolf's calm voice came through. "Still airborne. Holding near command. Standing by for orders." Merrick let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Good. Couldn't have done it without you." Wolf's reply was almost a whisper. "We're all just doing our job." Back at Forward Base Trident, Colonel Ruiz was already poring over satellite images and intercepted communications. He paced the room, worry creasing his brow. The enemy's precision and coordination suggested they had a mole, or worse, an informant embedded somewhere close. Ruiz tapped a finger on the table. This was no coincidence. They knew exactly where Echo Platoon would be. That means someone tipped them off. His aide looked grim. "We'll tighten security and double-check all intel sources, sir." Ruiz nodded. "Make it a priority. And get Wolf ready for the next sortie. We can't afford to lose her." Meanwhile, high above the desert, Wolf adjusted her helmet, eyes scanning the endless horizon. Her mind replayed the mission, the chaos, the close calls, the lives saved. But there was no time for rest. The fight was far from over. She thought of Echo Platoon, how they'd fought like ghosts, moving through hell and surviving against impossible odds. She'd watched them, invisible but always present, like a shadow guiding their way. Her radio crackled again. "Ghost One, command here. New orders inbound." Wolf replied without hesitation. "Copy that. Ready to engage." As she descended toward the landing pad, a thought struck her. In the air, in the valley, and in the quiet moments between, war was more than bullets and fire. It was trust. It was courage. It was knowing someone had your back, even when the world was falling apart. She landed smoothly, the Apache's rotors slowing to a stop. Ground crew swarmed, checking the bird for damage and refueling. Wolf removed her helmet, revealing eyes sharp with determination but shadowed with fatigue. Colonel Ruiz approached, his voice low but sincere. "Captain Wolf, outstanding work today. You saved lives out there." She nodded. "We all did, sir." Echo Platoon held their ground because they believed someone was watching their six. Ruiz smiled faintly. They weren't wrong. That night, Wolf sat alone in the briefing room, going over mission data. She knew this was just the beginning. The enemy was smart, ruthless. They would come again. And next time, it might not be so easy. But she was ready. Because in war, it wasn't just the firepower that mattered. It was the heart behind the controls. And Captain Dana Wolf had plenty of both. The sun had barely risen when Captain Dana Wolf was already back in the cockpit of her Apache. The battle was over, but the war was far from won. Every mission left its mark, but Wolf carried her burdens with quiet strength. She didn't talk about the fear or the close calls. She simply prepared. Echo Platoon was regrouping after the extraction. Merrick was coordinating with command to get them patched up and ready for the next move. There was no time to linger in the calm. The enemy shadow still loomed large, and Wolf knew it. Her fingers danced over the controls as she ran through the pre-flight checklist again. The helicopter was a well-oiled machine, but it was the pilot who made the difference. Wolf's years of training were etched into every movement. The radio buzzed. "Ghost 1, this is command. We have new intel on enemy positions. They're consolidating near Ridge 12. Expect heavy resistance." Wolf's jaw tightened. Ridge 12 had been in no man's land for weeks. If the enemy was massing there, it spelled trouble. "Understood. Ghost 1 en route." As she lifted off, Wolf glanced down at the base below. The familiar buzz of the airstrip, the flurry of activity. It was the calm before the storm. In the air, Wolf's mind shifted into tactical mode. She reviewed the latest satellite images and ground reports. The enemy wasn't just hiding, they were planning something big. Wolf's gut told her this would be their most dangerous mission yet. She didn't have to wait long. Minutes into the flight, the radio crackled urgently. "Ghost 1, enemy SAMs detected near Ridge 12. Proceed with caution." Wolf's eyes narrowed. Surface-to-air missiles were deadly, fast, and unforgiving. One wrong move could bring her down in seconds. She adjusted her flight path, weaving through canyons and using the terrain as cover. The Apache was nimble, but the stakes were high. Below, the ridge came into view. Wolf could see enemy soldiers moving in tight formations, heavy weapons glinting in the sunlight. She keyed the mic. "Echo Platoon, this is Ghost 1. Hold your positions. I'm providing overwatch. Stay alert." On the ground, Merrick's voice came back, steady but tense. "Copy that, Ghost 1. We're dug in and ready." Wolf took a deep breath and engaged the targeting system. She locked onto a cluster of enemy vehicles, armored personnel carriers, armed trucks. The first missile launched with a deafening roar. It hit the lead vehicle, exploding in a ball of fire. The rest scattered, but Wolf was relentless. She fired again and again, each strike precise. The ground shook beneath the blast. But then a sharp jolt rocked the Apache. Warning alarms blared. "Missile incoming." Wolf shouted, twisting the controls violently. A fiery streak closed in fast. Wolf banked hard, narrowly dodging the blast. The heat scorched the side of the helicopter, but she was still flying. "Evasive maneuvers engaged," she reported, sweat beading on her forehead. The enemy was skilled. They weren't going down without a fight. Wolf didn't let up. She pushed the Apache deeper into the fight, providing cover fire for Echo Platoon as they advanced. Gunfire erupted from the ridge, tracer rounds flashing against the sky. Wolf's chain gun rumbled, tearing into enemy positions with unyielding fury. On the ground, Merrick and his men fought tooth and nail, rallying behind the support from above. Minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity. Then, slowly, the enemy began to fall back. Wolf tracked their retreat, not lowering her guard until the last vehicle disappeared over the ridge. "Echo Platoon, regroup and hold," she instructed. As the dust settled, Wolf allowed herself a brief moment to breathe. The Apache shuddered gently under her hands, battle scars glinting in the sun. She knew the fight wasn't over. But today, they had won a battle. And tomorrow, she would fly again. The sun was low, casting long shadows over the base as Captain Dana Wolf climbed out of the Apache. Her body ached, every muscle tight from hours in the cockpit. But she stood tall, unbroken. Around her, soldiers moved with tired but determined steps. Echo Platoon had made it back, battered but alive. Merrick approached, his face a mix of exhaustion and gratitude. "We couldn't have done it without you up there," he said quietly. Wolf shook her head. "You held your ground. That's what made it possible." The two shared a brief, knowing look, a silent bond forged in fire. Colonel Ruiz came over, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning mission reports. "Captain Wolf, your performance was exemplary. The enemy underestimated us, and you made sure they paid for it." She nodded, But inside, Wolf knew this was only the beginning. The intelligence suggested more enemies, more battles ahead. They weren't out of danger, not by a long shot. That night, Wolf found herself alone on the base's observation deck. The desert sky stretched endlessly above her, stars flickering like distant promises. She thought about the men on the ground, their faces, their courage. She thought about the ones who hadn't made it back. War was a brutal teacher. It demanded sacrifice, resilience, and sometimes a kind of quiet heroism that went unnoticed. But Wolf didn't do it for recognition. She did it because she believed in something bigger, a mission, a purpose, a duty. Her radio buzzed softly in her pocket. She checked it, a message from command. "Good work today, Captain. Get some rest. We'll need you ready for what's next." She smiled faintly and tucked the radio away. As dawn approached, Wolf's mind was already on the next flight, the next mission, the next battle. Because in the skies above the desert, and in the hearts of those who fought below, hope was never just a word. It was a lifeline. And Captain Dana Wolf was determined to keep it alive.